Attention shoppers, clean up on aisle 14. Clean up on aisle 14. Someone dropped a jar of pickles. Pickles. Kosher pickles.
Beatboxing at a big box store. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
A red minivan has the lights on in the parking lot.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Geico.
Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. It's our first show in nearly 2 weeks. Tony, where did you spend your vacation?
I'm Tony Kornheiser, and I can't get specific, but I'm proud to say I was released on my own recognizance.
Do you need to be released like that because it's just too damn cold where you are? Huh? Is that the reason?
It's very cold where I am, but let me say, just as an aside, as a result of what happened, I can never go back to Jacksonville. That's all I'm saying. I can't.
You and those Waffle Houses, you know, you don't play fair.
Thousands of Waffle Houses on every corner. Welcome to the first PTI of the year, boys and girls. In today's episode, Alabama rolls, the Raiders close in on John Gruden, and the Cavs are ready to add an all-star. But we begin today with the best game of the weekend, Oklahoma and Georgia. It was 45-45 at the end of regulation and went 2 overtimes before Georgia won. Baker Mayfield was far better in the first half than in the second. Indeed, Oklahoma was up 31-14 at one point. Wilbon, did Mayfield and Oklahoma lose this, or did Georgia win it?
No. Georgia had to come back twice. No. Georgia had to come back. Georgia had to be timely, if not great, on offense and even defense. There had to be some plays made. And, Tony, Georgia, I mean, they're behind double digits. They're behind double digits again.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they have that what could have been a crushing turnover that allows Oklahoma to scramble and get back, you know, into a tie. It was such a great game, Tony, and I think anybody felt that way, whether you had a rooting interest or not. I didn't really have a rooting interest. Family from Georgia, that's where my father is from, and my family is from there. And I was sort of rooting for Georgia, and I'm not a Baker Mayfield fan because I think he's just too showy and presumptuous. I get tired of him a little bit, but he was great largely, and that game was great.
Yeah, I'll say this about Baker Mayfield. We're on the opposite side of the fence on him. I love him. And I'm sorry that he's not still in it because I would have liked to see the Heisman Trophy winner get a chance at the national championships. I agree with you on this point. When games are this good, they are not lost, they are won. Somebody makes a play to win the game. Georgia won that game. Now, in hindsight, that field goal at the end of the first half, after a very bad botched kickoff attempt of some sort, that may have been the turning point because Georgia came out in the second half and made 5 straight defensive stops of Oklahoma. But it's not a game that you lose. That's a game you win. Georgia won.
Didn't you fully expect Georgia to sort of regroup regardless? I understand the circumstances, you know, but Georgia was, I never turned away thinking, oh, this game is somehow out of reach.
I didn't think it was over.
They're going to get dominated.
I didn't think it was over, but I'll say this. If you're a team with a great offense, and Oklahoma had a great offense all year, if you get 45 in regulation and you don't win, you cannot fathom what has just happened.
But Tony, the Big 12 didn't play defense all year. So why expect them to do it last night? I didn't. It didn't have to go very deep into the Alabama-Clemson Sugar Bowl matchup to realize we'd be having an all-SEC college football championship game. Alabama and Georgia are separated by only 274 miles, Tony, which leaves people who care about geographic inclusion like you with their faces pressed against the glass. There are so many similarities between the two, including that the Bulldogs are coached by a man who this time 2 years ago was Nick Saban's defensive coordinator at Alabama. Tony, I'm a Midwestern kid. You're a New Yorker. I got a feeling at least one of us is disappointed with an all-SEC title game.
Let me tell you what I'm disappointed in more than this particular game, which I see as a regional game. That game last night started at 9 o'clock. That's ridiculous. I know it doesn't affect you because you're in the West, but in the East, if you start at 9, when a college game takes almost 4 hours to play, you are going back to school and to work the next day. That's just get rid of those other dopey bowl games in the afternoon and play these things at 3 and at 7. And now I'll answer your question about Georgia and Alabama. Normally I would say that it lacks a certain amount of luster because they're in the same conference. But, Mike, they didn't play each other this year. They were both number one at various points. They hadn't played each other. They haven't played each other in a couple of years. I'm okay with this. I mean, geographically, I'm disturbed by it, but I'm okay with this matchup.
It was already 4 Southern schools, so who cares? It was already, you started off with Oklahoma and Clemson and Georgia and Alabama. Yeah. I understand that people who do this with the stuff we do and watch these shows, they understand all the conference affiliations and all the subtleties and nuances. 70% of the people, and now we're talking enormous audiences for these games, they don't know the difference between what conference Florida State plays in and what Florida plays in. They don't.
Well, they like
and
the
so
SEC.
Now you started off with 4 Southern schools, and you got 2 Southern schools left, and it doesn't make a difference. I don't want to hear any whining from the Big Ten.
You have Oklahoma in the South and not in the West. You don't have that. So let me just get to one thing. These are great defensive teams. We really loved the Georgia-Oklahoma game.
We're not getting that.
But this could be 10-3, Mike. This could be 10-3 or 10-7.
There are great 10-3 games in the world.
Well, yeah, but
what do we call
exciting.
that? Was it Michigan State, Notre Dame, their famous 1966 game, 10-10?
Mike, that was 55 years ago, wasn't it?
You had hair.
Like I was in high school.
Big red afro then you had.
Everybody in the United States of America, everybody, seems to believe that John Gruden will be hired as coach of the Oakland Raiders. Gruden has been out of coaching doing broadcasts on Monday Night Football for the last 9 years. Well, but how sure are you that he will be able to pick up where he left off?
How about completely not sure? Like completely skeptical. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with John and his ability as a football coach and all that has got him to this point in his life. It has nothing to do with that. We have seen a couple of people do this, Tony. Dick Vermeil did it successfully. Yes. And then Joe Gibbs did it a little less successfully. He didn't measure up to the previous Joe Gibbs who put 3, Lombardi trophies in the trophy case out there in Virginia. So I don't know. I mean, I'm persuaded by guys like Bill Cowher and Tony Dungy, who I have talked to over the years about how much they love their lives. Jimmy Johnson. He did go back once, but not with this kind of gap. They love their lives. It's hard to go back when you've had this kind of security and you wake up on Sunday morning and you're not stressed to the max. I don't know.
I don't know either. Cowher never went back. Brian Billick hasn't gone back. Tony Dungy hasn't gone back. John Madden never went back. It's a very small sample size. We both think of Vermeil immediately. Bud Wilkinson, I think, went back at one point and wasn't successful at all and was one of the greatest college coaches of all time. So I don't know. When John Gruden left, when Tampa Bay fired him, he was, I think, 9-7 2 years in a row and had been 0-2 in the playoffs over the last 6 seasons at Tampa Bay. But he never had a quarterback. Derek Carr is, I think, better than any quarterback he had while he was at Tampa Bay, and that's why I think they're such a disappointing team this year that they are poised to be really good, and he could be really good with them. But like you, I don't know. I don't.
Tony, it's so difficult. And what else do they have? Do they have the other necessities in Oakland to be successful? I mean, is the owner now, since Gruden is his favorite and the guy he's tapping on the shoulder, and I'm sure it seems like it would have the blessing of the great Al from the great beyond.
They got a great defensive player in Khalil Mack.
What does it mean?
Well, I think they've got money. They're going to go to Vegas, and they're going to have this incredible palace to play in. But it's 9 years. It's 9 years, a long time. He watched all the time. I don't know.
Let's broaden this NFL coach talk, please. Caldwell, Fox, Del Rio, Pagano, Arians, and of course McAdoo are gone. Lewis, Jackson, Garrett, Joseph, and your Gruden are all apparently staying put. There was some thought that between 10 and 13 coaches would be fired, but that's not going to play out. What's the bigger news here, Tony? Those who are going or those who are staying?
I'm going to give you one of each because I can easily make the case for Jim Caldwell at Detroit. He's over 500. He's a good coach. I don't really understand that one. But
they had to make the playoffs, Tony. Everybody knew if they didn't make the playoffs, he was going to get fired. I'm not saying that's right, but that was the case.
I would have kept him. I cannot fathom Hugh Jackson. He's 1-31 at Cleveland. That's the worst record of all time. 1-31. If you think that 10-6 is a good record, he needs 8 years of 10-6 to get to 500.
But his owner,
I don't get it.
His new GM is saying that the old GM failed the team. Right. That's when he hired. He stepped to the mic and said, those people failed this coach. So that's the reason. You can fathom it. The GM, the guy who's the executive, is saying, I believe in the coach, I don't believe in the executive.
Is a tough record. I could have seen the guy at Tampa Bay going. I could have seen the guy at Miami
Why is he
going.
staying?
I could have seen the guy at the Washington Redskins going. I mean, there are people out there that you could see going. So in terms of what's the bigger story, it may be who is staying and not who is going at the moment.
I think the bigger story is half the number of coaches who could have been gone are going. Half.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, we were led to believe that this was going to be, back up the truck and haul half the league away. And it isn't that, Tony. So, I don't know.
You know what is true, Mike? What is true is that you get less of a leash than you ever had. You get a team, and if you're not making significant progress in 3 years, you're out. You're out. Yeah. That's it.
Let me say something about my own situation, or the one I'm close to.
Chicago.
John Fox, whatever his record was, it's fine.
It was
14 and 34, something like that. Fine. But for the GM of that joint to get an extension, are you kidding me? Please.
And those of you who wanted to drink when the Chicago Bears were mentioned, please go ahead.
I didn't say Chicago Bears.
Isaiah Thomas
you did.
will make his long-awaited debut for the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight in Cleveland against Portland. Thomas has been rehabbing his injured hip for the last 8 months. Wilbon, do you expect this to be an easy integration for the Cavaliers?
No. Isaiah Thomas isn't some facilitator. He isn't some guy who stands around and is just going to be content to play off LeBron. He may be at first, but if he only does that, then they're not going to get to the point they want, which is beating the Warriors. So no, this is going to be difficult. It's supposed to be anything rewarding at that level has risk, and it's difficult. So this is going to take some time. People can go crazy if they want because they go 5 and 6 or whatever. Right. And if they jump out and they go 9 and 1, God bless them. Good for them. I expect it to be difficult.
I expect it to be very easy. I have a statistic that's interesting. The Cleveland Cavaliers point guards to this moment are 29th out of 30 in points and 29th out of 30
Which means
in assists.
Nothing.
And I'll tell you why I expect it to be easy more than that number. That is because every single year around January or February, LeBron James looks around and he says, you know what, this isn't cutting it, and we need somebody else. And that's how they end up with Kyle Korver and Amon Shumpert and J.R. Smith and Channing Frye. And then you know what happens in 4 months? They're in the finals. Every year, they bring in new people, they get better, they go to the finals. I expect Isaiah Thomas by the end to be playing about 30 minutes a game and for them to be in the finals again.
Yeah, but you're talking about I'm answering a question about how difficult it's going to be to get to that point. I fully believe the Cavaliers will get to that point.
Yeah.
But I don't think there aren't going to be bumps in the road. Isaiah Thomas needs the ball. He's got to learn how to play with LeBron. Now, what helps is Isaiah's also out there in the fourth quarter. They could maybe alter that. He could become the setup man as opposed to the finisher. We know who the finisher on that team is.
Sure.
So maybe Isaiah takes his brilliance to the third quarter and they somehow figure it out. But it's got to be figured out, Tony. I don't believe these things happen easily.
I think it'd be pretty easy. What I'm sad about is that I guess it's tomorrow night. He won't play. Isaiah Thomas is not going to play against Boston. So that renders that game moot and meaningless to me.
Yeah.
Because
they don't want him to play against Boston, and Boston.
That's right.
They're ducking that one. They're ducking it.
Who would go to that game, honestly? Let's take a break. But coming up, Michigan was the only Big Ten team to lose. Did your boy Jim Harbaugh let down his conference?
Yes. Let me answer that now. I ruined the teams. And the University of Central Florida finishes an undefeated season by beating the team that beat both Georgia and Alabama. Should the Knights have been in the playoff?
Let me say no and ruin the tease. No.
We got plenty to talk about with Jim Harbaugh.
Help protect what matters with the ADT Safer, Smarter New Year's sales event. For a limited time, get an ADT Security Starter Kit. Everything you need to get started with ADT Pulse, including a security panel, keypad, a motion sensor, and 2 entry sensors. Plus, there's an indoor camera and key fob all professionally installed for only $49. It's a $599 savings that comes with the warm, confident feeling of safety at home. Requires 36-month monitoring contract, QSP, and Easy Pay. Activation and early termination fees may apply. Certain markets excluded. Licenses available at ADT.com. Florida EF 0001121. Louisiana F1639. Visit ADT.com/podcast. Hurry. This special offer now ends 1/21.
It's mail time. Why don't I see what is washed ashore here?
Mail time?
Okay, here we go, Mike. Did Jim Harbaugh let down the Big Ten?
Of course he did. The Big Ten, with Northwestern's crazy escape in Nashville against Kentucky included, was 7-0 in playoff games. All Jim Harbaugh had to do was hold the double-digit lead he had, I think, at one point over South Carolina. They couldn't do it. Michigan turned it over. They looked awful. I know they're down to like their third-string quarterback. But now we're 7-1. We have a blemish because Harbaugh, Coach Kaki, didn't get it done. Yes, blemish.
I'm gonna do this takeaway from all the bowl games that were not the national playoff games. That next year, and you and I talked about this on the podcast this morning, that next year the Big Ten champion is getting into the playoff no matter how many losses it has because of how well the Big Ten has done so far. With specifics to Harbaugh, and I think he's great for college football. He's 9-8 in his last 17, Mike.
What does that mean? That raises a question.
There's an opening at Indianapolis with Andrew Luck coming back, who he coached in college. And I know you want him for the Bears, but he may end up in Indianapolis coaching Andrew Luck.
Who drafted Jim Harbaugh? Where's the owner still that loves him? Virginia McCaskey,
Nobody loves him like you love him.
Not Indy.
Did UCF's win over Auburn convince you the Knights were overlooked for the playoffs?
No. And beating Auburn, I'm going to tell you, for me specifically, I'm not going to go through UCF's schedule and strength of schedule and all that stuff. And they are fine program. But, Tony, Auburn, as we've seen with SEC schools, when they have to play somebody in a bowl game they don't respect, they don't want to be there, their fans don't even want to make the drive, they don't care. Alabama's done this. They've thrown a clunker in, even under Nick Saban, and this is what happens when SEC schools get somebody that's really not on their level. They just go, that in large part could have happened here.
I mean, congratulations to UCF. I would not have put them into a 4-team playoff. I would not have, because of the schedule that they played, getting to where they are. But here's one thing I'm sure of. That Nebraska has a real chance to get back to the real glory with this guy, Scott Frost. He took a team that was 0-12, and then in 2 years went to 13-0, and he deserves all the congratulations in the world for doing that and staying through the bowl game. And the SEC, by the way, was looking at a debacle until yesterday. When
but now they got two teams in the title game. They're looking at world dominance is what they're looking at.
Better touchdown, Notre Dame and the Bengals, and I'm going first on this because I watched them both. Notre Dame's touchdown was a more artful touchdown. It was a better-looking touchdown. It's a fabulous individual play.
It's missed tackles.
But what happened in Cincinnati on 4th and 12 for Andy Dalton was the most important single play of the entire weekend. It knocked the Ravens out of the playoffs. There's no way this guy should have been this open. The Ravens are out. Buffalo is in, which means the coach at Buffalo survives the Nathan Peterman era.
That's right.
And they get in for the first time since 1999. So for that reason, Mike, that play for me is the bigger deal.
Mine is much simpler than that. It doesn't involve implications or Nathan Peterman. One guy made a great play, but two other people on the defense, the college football defense, missed tackles. They had him corralled. On the other play, the Bengals receiver, he used some speed. I know there was an attempt to get his ankles at the end or get his heels, but the Bengals receiver made the bigger catch, even if it wasn't important to the game, and it was. Very important to the game.
It was not only important to the game, it was important to the league.
It's the whole league.
It changed the whole playoffs, changed them all. How should Bill Belichick feel about Jimmy Garoppolo's 5-0 record with the 49ers?
Here's how Bill Belichick should feel. Jimmy what? Jimmy who? We're about to go win another Super Bowl, and he's with a team that wound up going, 5-11? It was great. We knew that. We trained him.
6-10.
We trained the pup to do that. But Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots are the favorites, or better be, going into the NFL playoffs. Why would he even remember Garoppolo's name?
I think his takeaway from this is that he's a very good talent scout. Jimmy Garoppolo is a pro quarterback. And they couldn't keep him, Mike, because they would have had to franchise him and pay him more money than Tom Brady, which you can't do. It makes no sense. Nobody had any idea that Tom Brady at 40 would be this good, but he is. He is this good. So you have to go out if you're Bill Belichick, and you have to go find another guy this year or next year that'll ultimately take Tom Brady's place. Maybe. But he should feel good about Garoppolo.
Tony, you know what? The Patriots often throw people out early. They didn't with Brady.
Yes.
Okay, but look, there's a team that did this. The San Francisco 49ers threw out Joe Montana, who had to go to Kansas City, and Steve Young delivered.
And he went to the Hall of Fame.
It has been done the other way.
Enough email. Let's take one last break, but still to come. What does a surprising change at the top mean for the Green Bay Packers?
And what will James Harden's injury do to the Rockets?
I did tell you that Garoppolo was good. He's good.
He's terrific.
And that closes out Kirk Cousins in the West Coast.
There are plenty other places, Tony. There are plenty other teams with non-quarterbacks.
Happy time, people. Happy 55th birthday, Edgar Martinez. Everyone said Edgar Martinez would be the first primarily designated hitter to be voted into the Hall of Fame, but he only has 2 years left on the regular ballot to do so. Martinez played 18 years with Seattle. He left with a .312 average, 309 homers, and 1,261 RBI. Wilbon, he's a Hall of Famer to you?
He is, Tony. That average, and he averaged also 24 home runs and 99 runs batted in per year. I think he is a Hall of Famer, yes.
Well, 2 years to go. Not so happy anniversary, Kevin Gilbride. On this day 24 years ago, the Oilers offensive coordinator was punched by the Oilers defensive coordinator, Buddy Ryan, on the Houston sideline. Gilbride went on to become offensive coordinator for the New York Giants on 2 Super Bowl winners. But if you Google Kevin Gilbride, you get this thing with Buddy Ryan.
Tony, don't they have 2 Super Bowl rings each? Gilbride 2 with the Giants, Buddy 1 with the Jets,
and the
one
Bears.
with the Bears. Isn't that true?
And the Bears, yes. Happy trails, Carson Palmer. The 38-year-old veteran and 3-time Pro Bowl player announced his retirement from football today. Palmer spent the last 5 years with the Arizona Cardinals, but was injured significantly in 2 of the last 4 seasons. He was a Heisman Trophy winner who did good, right, Mike?
Did very, very good, Tony, but short of great because of those injuries. First with Cincinnati back in like 05, and then, of course, as you said, with the Cardinals. They were 13-3. They had serious aspirations.
Couple of omissions. James Harden out 2 weeks with a hamstring injury, and breaking news, the Bengals have signed Marvin Lewis to a 2-year contract extension.
There we go.
Let's go to the big finish. The Packers have changed Ted Thompson's role from GM to special advisor. What do you read into that?
Tony, Dom Capers got fired, too. A lot of changes in Green Bay. Capers, to me, more important than Ted Thompson, though he picked a lot of good players. Texans head coach Bill O'Brien says or feels he's going to be back next season. Do you?
I do. They lost Deshaun Watson. I mean, they didn't have a quarterback. Mike Tomlin says Antonio Brown's recovery from a calf injury is going well. That's a big deal.
Huge deal, Tony. Nobody can guard this guy. You can't stop him. DeMar DeRozan had a franchise-high 52 for the Raps last night. Is that significant?
Yes, it's the franchise high. Of course it is. Last one, Butler beat number 1 Villanova on Saturday. Will they beat number 5 Xavier tonight?
No, Xavier playing at home. They're pretty good. They're going to be looking out for Butler. I don't see an upset there.
We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time. And I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcast.
Wilbon, you got to see the movie I, Tonya. It's actually great.
No, it's a bunch of girls, Tonya Harding. No, I'm boycotting.
It's great. It's great.
PTI.